We all know the housing has boomed, amenities and commercial services and businesses kind of lagged behind. But that's just kind of how it goes. In the report, they talk about leakage, money that could be spent in our community that's being spent in other communities. Our plans going forward, it's trying to plug some of those leaks, provide some of those services and amenities, and capture those tax dollars inside of our community.
Welcome to Herrimanology,
the official podcast to keep up with Herriman City.
We'll take you inside the city, explore the latest news and updates, show you how your government operates, and discuss the issues that affect us all. Now, here are your hosts talking all things Herriman on Herrimanology.
All right, welcome to Herrimanology. It is somewhere between Wednesday and Thursday, July 9th and 10th. We are on the heels of a city council meeting. Usually we do this the day after. We're doing it just right as the meeting ends. So
yeah, we're getting close to midnight. It'll be fun, right?
We're going to talk about the city council meeting. The reason we're doing it now is because I'm off tomorrow, and we wanted to get the podcast out of the way. It was a long meeting. I thought it would go a little bit longer, honestly, but it didn't.
Yeah, I think you lost the bet.
I did. I'm okay with that. I'm John LaFollette, Communications Manager for Herriman City. Tonight, joined by Councilmember Shields. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. It was a good meeting tonight.
It was. Let's hit on one major piece, kind of two pieces of the same thing in the work meeting, economic development. So, Zions Public Finance presented a draft economic development strategic plan update. The city's had one before. What were some of the highlights from that? And then following that, there was a quick discussion about a quarterly economic development update. What were some of the highlights from that kind of realm of things?
Yeah, so they're both kind of intertwined. As we all know, the housing has boomed in our community, and the amenities and commercial services and businesses has kind of lagged behind. I'd love to tell you that's just kind of how it goes, but that's just kind of how it goes. Right. What we have been striving aggressively for several years is to come up with a really good plan, a very articulated way of describing where we have needs, where we have holes. In the report, they talk about that as leakage, meaning money that could be spent in our community that's being spent in other communities. The sum total of that amount of money is like $750 million a year that's being spent outside of our community. If it was spent in our community, would be generating north of $4 million in tax revenue to Herriman City. That would substantially help our budget. So some of the areas that were highlighted were, for example, auto sales. $170 million being spent outside of our community. When we construct the auto mall, that's substantially going to capture those funds inside of our city.
Which is in progress.
In progress. We're expecting construction of the first portion of that to begin in the near future.
Hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yeah, hopefully sooner rather than later. There's still some complexities around that with the developer and the landowner, but I think that's getting resolved soon. Another area that talked about leakage was hospitality, and we capture very, very little of that. But there's a couple of hotels that are in their final stages of discussion, signing some letters of intent. One out on the north side by where the Winco is. There's one planned out there, and there's another hotel being planned for the Academy Village area down by where Lee's Marketplace is. And so both of those are kind of exciting developments. So as we talk about, our plans going forward, it's trying to plug some of those leaks, provide some of those services and amenities, and capture those tax dollars inside of our community, which will help with our budget. Now, again, if all of that $750 million was spent inside of our city, that's $4 million in revenue. So nothing to sneeze at for sure, but that's not even 10% of our over budget. So there's sometimes a misnomer that huge economic development is going to solve all of our budget issues and provide just billions of dollars. That's not quite how the way it works.
If only it was that easy.
Yeah, it's not quite that easy.
And even that's not easy.
Still important. for services, for employers, for amenities in our community, for keeping traffic from going out of our city and keeping it in the city. That all of those things add up to substantial quality of life improvements for us.
Yeah. Moving on to the general meeting. Before we get to the voting items, there were a couple of neat moments. There was recognition with D.A.R.E essay contest winners.
Yeah.
That was pretty neat. The youth council presented some of their legacy projects, and the new youth council was sworn in. It's always neat. You talk about this a lot. That's just one of your favorite parts of this, and just we got to see it again tonight.
It is. There is so much minutia and boring and budgets and land use. That stuff is really what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
The stuff that we get to do is celebrating the youth in our community, the great contributions they're making. They're seeing needs, filling needs, making contributions in our community that not only impact now, but our legacy impacts are things that are going to continue to provide benefits in our community for the years to come. And when you talk about a youth council that started at 8 people when it first started, and now there were 50 members of this youth council. What a powerful group, and we're just really proud of all they're doing in our community.
Yeah.
It's so much fun to celebrate them. The D.A.R.E essays were amazing. I've talked to Officer Jake about just the content of some of those essays. They are powerful. I cannot believe these are 5th graders recognizing the impact that they can have in the world and the courage they have to make good, strong decisions. It's impressive.
Yeah. Moving, I guess, to some of that boring minutia that that went on, but a massive project that, let's be honest, most people won't care about, but it's vitally important. Updating the city's water master plan, the impact fee analysis, impact fee facilities plan. That's just going to be a lot of jargon for people who don't pay a lot of attention, which is going to be most people.
Right.
What was that all about? It was 2 separate items technically, but there was a lot kind of combined into that. What was the update? Kind of what was that item about?
Yeah, so long story short, every several years we need to update our plans based on land use changes, and new areas are zoned, and things change. For example, when the plan was made several years ago, Olympia wasn't a part of the city. Certain businesses didn't exist. And so, as we incorporate that in, there's some modifications to the plan. Costs go up, so we have to change the plan. That impacts the impact fees, the redundancy there. What it does is it changes how much we can charge in impact fees for new development that comes in to help pay for all of the infrastructure and the water that's required to supply water to these new developments. But one of the things that's really important, and probably the biggest impact on this overall plan, was that the city council decided a while ago to not construct secondary water lines to new areas. The costs were astronomical, $80 to $100 million of cost that now we don't have to spend to build. We would have been building lines with no water to really supply those lines, and that's really ultimately what kind of trumped everything. So when you can save $100 million to build something that probably wouldn't have ever water in it anyway, it was a no-brainer for us.
That's a win.
But that substantially impacted the plans and lowered costs in some areas, increased costs slightly in some other areas, but overall is a huge net win for the city.
Yeah. There was a lengthy discussion. There have been a few of these about the Wasatch South Hills Master Development Agreement. Again, we talk about this every time. It's a huge amount of land on the southeastern side of the city. It is entitled a few times over to be developed. Right. And we hear from people a lot, don't approve more housing, don't approve more. It's already approved, and the city can't just take it away. But
we're certainly trying where we can.
Right. But all that said, I don't know if there is a way to summarize this and all the previous discussions in a short synopsis, but Have at it if you can.
I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. The entire South Hills area, so everything south of what's currently developed, all along Mountain View Corridor on the west side of Mountain View Corridor primarily, it's covered by a couple of different development agreements. And it's complex. There are multiple landowners. There's been charitable foundations that have changed. I mean, you name it, it's made it more complicated. Essentially, an agreement was made back in 2009.
Yes, 2009.
2009, and decisions were made, and land was entitled based under a completely different set of circumstances. You know, you fast forward 15 years, we're a totally different city. We have different needs. There's, different directions, different land use decisions, different building requirements, all of that. And so this has been an ongoing effort, a very iterative process of trying to clean up and resolve the differences between what we're currently trying to achieve and what was planned back in 2009. And the reconciliation of those two plans is essentially what we're trying to do. Cleaning up the old agreement, trying to bring it in line with where we are now, understanding that the developer had certain rights given them back in 2009. They're a little reluctant to give up some of those rights. So as we go through the negotiation, we keep having these meetings where we're give a little, take a little, give a little, take a little. The end result of everything that's going to be done in the South Hills is such a substantial improvement over what was originally planned. We think the residents are going to be really, really pleased with the fact that there are going to be just thousands of single-family detached homes built all up this house. It's going to be beautiful. There are going to be some denser areas, but they're going to be really close to the corridor, further down the hill. But as you go up the hill, it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah,
one of the best developments in the state.
Yeah, I think that was a great synopsis too. Yeah. That's it's a massive discussion that's happened over a long time, multiple times, and there'll be more to come too. But I think this is a really good checkpoint in that sort of project. It's different than Panorama, for those who are wondering. It's different from Rosecrest. It's totally different from Olympia. There are a lot of pieces throughout the whole city. This is a major one of them, and it reached a major checkpoint tonight.
Yeah, and the really cool thing is that what we accomplished tonight actually helps Panorama and Rosecrest and all of those unfinished items, from park strips to road connections to, even secondary water where it's already, where pipes are already in the ground. It makes all of that stuff happen much faster now because of what we did tonight.
And probably better too.
I think so.
Yeah. There was an interesting ordinance update regarding construction noise. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in this. What was that one?
Yeah, basically, our ordinance was insufficient in enforcing construction noise after hours. And some of our construction folks in the community were really abusing that, doing things late at night, in the middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning, just egregious problems, but we lacked the ability to truly enforce anything. And so what we did tonight was change up some of that code that allows our code enforcement and officers to really take some action if that happens again.
Yeah, and just keep construction within reasonable hours that everybody's used to.
Just normal hours, not at 2 in the morning.
Right. And one last thing. There were a lot of voting items. I think off the top of my head there were 10. We're not going to go over all of them. They'll be recapped on the website. Yeah. One more at the very end of the meeting we wanted to touch on. Juniper Canyon asphalt trail contract was approved. A lot of the construction project contracts don't go to a discussion. This one did because the bid came a little bit over what the city had originally budgeted. But
right.
A really cool project coming up. I know a lot of people really look forward to continued development of Juniper Canyon, but we get one step closer tonight.
That's really going to be a jewel when it's all said and done. There's so many cool things happening over there. But again, this is just another step in a long process. The cool thing is the construction of the asphalt trail that connects up behind Providence Hall High School all the way down with just kind of behind Lee's over there. The county is actually awarding funds to help construct that. So 2 years ago, we actually submitted. It was approved 6 months later, and here we are, a year plus after that, actually getting to the bid and constructing. So from the time that it was proposed until today, the costs have gone up, just like they have with everything.
Yep.
And what we were trying to do today was decide, do we want to spend the additional cost to complete all of the trail connections, or were we happy just kind of cutting it off and spending less? And so what we decided tonight was take some money out of our park impact fees to help cover this additional cost, and then as we move forward, we'll have to make some additional budget decisions down the road, but eventually we're going to pay for that. So we thought, let's just do it in today's dollars instead of waiting for the cost to go up again.
Yep. And part of that too who's to say for sure, but some of the theory too was some of that could be backfilled by some extra funds from the 7300 West project that where the project so far is coming in under the budget and the contingency that the city had planned on.
Yeah.
So I want to say it's cheaper because it's a massively expensive project, but coming in a little bit under what the city had
Relatively cheaper.
Right. Coming under what the city had prepared for, maybe is a good way to put that. And those funds can be allocated, and government finances really tricky, but it's moving around.
Essentially, what we decided was that the road funds would stay for the road project, and the park funds would fund the park and recreation project.
Yep.
And keeping those separate just kind of keeps things cleaner.
Yep. That's probably good enough for tonight. It was a long meeting. There were a lot of things going on, and if you want a full recap, you can go to Herriman.org probably tomorrow, which is when most of you are going to be listening to this anyway. We'll get that written and published. Thank you, Councilmember Shields, for staying up later.
Happy to do it. It was a great meeting, and it's just important to let our residents know the good things that are happening.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot more to come. We were talking about economic development.
Oh, wow.
There's some really good things happening. Jamba Juice just opened. Royal Pickleball just opened. There's a lot more to come to. You mentioned the hotels. There are a lot of things we can't quite announce yet, but there's some good things coming.
Some bars, some restaurants, another giant pickleball facility. There's I can't say, but let's just say there's some really cool amenities, some specialty stores. I think when this all gets announced, it is just going to blow the minds of our residents. I cannot wait for this news to be allowed to share with the public.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's enough for tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening and watching, and we will catch you next time.